Explosions rock the ground beneath you. Artillery shells scream overhead as dirt rains down on your trench. But this doesn't faze you. You've been on the front for years. You're experienced, grizzled. You close your eyes hoping for some rest before the American troops advance. Suddenly, your throat seizes. You gasp, your lungs are burning. Your vision blurs, your eyes sting. You stumble around the trench disoriented as your comrades howl in pain, their bodies writhe in agony. Slowly, the sounds fade as your world turns to black. You've just become the latest victim of an American phosgene gas attack. A weapon so terrifying, it's been banned. And that's just the beginning. In today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're revealing the most insane weapons the US military had to ban: chemical weapons. By the time of the US entry into World War I, most major powers had firmly established chemical weapons programs. On the Western Front, the use of chemical weapons was a daily occurrence, and there was a whole smorgasbord of agents to choose from. While many people are familiar with mustard gas due to the gnarly blisters and burns it left its victims, there were numerous other chemical weapons in use, including chlorine, bromine-based agents, and the war's deadliest gas, phosgene. Phosgene gas was so deadly because it was a silent killer, with a smell similar to fresh hay or cut grass. This colorless gas blended in with the surrounding environment. Being heavier than air, it would sink into the foxholes, trenches, and dugouts where enemy soldiers were sleeping. Due to the indiscriminate nature of chemical weapons, along with the sheer agony soldiers and civilians alike suffered, the US and almost the rest of the world refrained from using them after World War I. Despite this, the US continued manufacturing huge quantities of chemical weapons until President Nixon renounced the American Chemical Weapons Program in 1969. However, it wasn't until 1997 that the US ratified the Chemical Weapons Convention, and then it took almost 30 years to destroy its stockpile, which was completed in 2023. But while chemical weapons primarily kill by making one's lungs fill with their own body fluids, this next weapon can suck the air right out of them and leave people gasping, as well as literally burning. Napalm. As the American troops advance toward your position, you see airplanes overhead. You brace for impact as a single plane makes a diving run on your position. Surely a few bombs won't do much damage to the complex of bunkers and trenches, that is, until they go off. Within seconds, a huge fireball engulfs everything around you, and you realize this is no normal bomb, but a napalm bomb. First introduced during World War II, napalm bombs became a favorite of US military leaders for destroying both civilian and military morale alike. After seeing great success in World War II, the US continued using it in Korea and most infamously in Vietnam. The use of napalm bombs, especially the Mark 77 variant, became synonymous with the conflict. As the bomb explodes, the gasoline, which is thickened with substances like polystyrene, immediately ignites upon impact and sticks to everything in its way. However, the bomb can maim and kill people more than just by burning. When used in enclosed areas like trench systems, napalm can even kill without touching someone. Because the huge fireball sucks in so much oxygen, people hiding in bunkers and dugouts might think they're safe. However, a napalm bomb can literally suck the air out of someone's lungs in enclosed spaces and kill by asphyxiation. And even those soldiers who manage to survive a napalm firebomb are not out of the woods yet. Flamethrowers. As the US troops advance toward the enemy trench line, they encounter stiff resistance from those who survived the napalm attack. Pinned down and nowhere to go but forward, the slog is grueling. But just when you think all is lost, you see a lone soldier making his way to the trenches. Strapped to his back are two tall canisters. One is filled with a napalm mixture, similar to the bombs that just dropped, while the other has nitrogen. These canisters make up the main components of the Mark II flamethrower. Realizing this man will be a sitting target, you start providing covering fire to protect him. As he gets closer to the nearest bunker, he aims the flamethrower's nozzle with its lit flame at the end and pulls the trigger. You and your comrades watch as the enemy soldiers are engulfed in flames. With the stench of burning flesh hanging in the air, you pour into the trenches to continue the assault. But there is just one problem. While not officially banned by treaty or legislation, the US military stopped mass-producing incendiary weapons like napalm and flamethrowers in 1978 due to international condemnation of the Vietnam War. Because of this, fire weapons are rarely used today and are certainly not readily available, just like this next weapon that was so heinous no US forces ever adopted it. But first, have you ever thought about creating a website but felt overwhelmed by the process? Maybe it seemed too expensive or required too much technical know-how. Well, not anymore. Thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Odoo, and they're making website creation easier than ever before. With Odoo's website builder, creating a professional site is fast and simple, giving you everything you need in just a few clicks. A website is essential for building a brand, whether you're a small business owner, freelancer, or hobbyist. It helps people discover and trust you. And Odoo makes getting started a breeze. Their simple drag-and-drop interface lets you design your site effortlessly with no coding required. And it has built-in AI tools that help with text generation and editing. Need something rephrased to sound more professional? Or maybe a quick boost to your word count? No problem, Odoo's got you covered. But the best part, your first app is completely free, for life. And that really does mean free, no hidden charges. Odoo includes unlimited hosting, customer support, and even offers a free custom domain for your first year. So if you've been holding back on starting a website, now is the perfect time. Head to the link in the description, sign up for Odoo's free website builder, and see how easy it can be to bring your ideas to life. So give it a try today and create the website you've been dreaming about. Now back to the video. Poison bullets. For as long as there have been ranged weapons like arrows, darts, and spears, people have been trying to make them deadlier. One way was by making them poison-tipped. In ancient times, it was common to dip arrows in snake venom or different plant-based poisons. As technology evolved, as did the understanding of the human body, armies adapted. During medieval times, it was not unheard of to put arrows into a decaying body or smear it in human blood before firing it at an enemy. In fact, the practice of poisoning projectiles continued even after firearms came into widespread use and were among the first weapons banned in the late 1800s, for good reason. Imagine being a soldier that's hit with a projectile like a bullet, and while devastating to the body, it could be the least of your concerns. If you were hit by a bullet covered in snake venom, you might survive the initial gunshot, but you would still die a horrible death within hours from the poison. On the other hand, getting shot by a bullet placed in a decaying body could cause infection, while bullets soaked in blood could kill you by introducing the wrong blood type into your body. The US never officially adopted any type of poison-tipped weapons into its arsenal, and the Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907 banned them before the US could try. However, international treaties did not stop the US from using an even deadlier, albeit now heavily regulated bullet today: hollow point ammunition. Despite not being armed with poison-tipped bullets, you and your fellow soldiers do have something even better. While international treaties refer to them as expanding bullets today, we know them as hollow points, and they are particularly nasty when they make contact with the human body. When a traditional full metal jacket bullet enters the body, the round transfers all of its kinetic energy into the surrounding tissues. This force can tear flesh, break bones, and even ricochet inside the body before exiting. Upon exiting, the wound is generally larger and causes even more damage. But despite this, hollow points are even deadlier. Characterized by their iconic cut or inverted shape, these bullets are meant to mushroom upon impact and get bigger. As the bullet starts to break apart, the surface area of the round increases, which causes more damage, as well as pieces of the round breaking off and spreading throughout the body. In close quarters combat, having hollow points offers a tactical advantage by reducing overpenetration and lessening the chance of friendly fire. But like fire weapons, the US heavily restricts them. Though not totally banning them, the US military heavily limits the use of hollow points to special forces and military law enforcement operations. The reason for this is to prevent civilian casualties in highly populated urban environments. However, despite their gruesomeness, one had a reasonable chance of recovering after being shot by a hollow point. But for this next weapon, it was intended for the target to never fully recover again. Saber 203 Laser Dazzler. As you and your comrades continue advancing through the trench lines, you start to run out of ammunition. This is a problem, considering the enemy has launched a vicious counterattack. The enemy continues to advance until you can see the whites of their eyes, and that is exactly what your buddy next to you is aiming for. Armed with the Saber 203 Laser Dazzler, this specially designed weapon fits inside a standard M16 rifle's 40mm grenade launcher. With the press of a button, your comrade fires this laser weapon at the enemy's eyes, and this powerful red laser instantly blinds anyone who's unlucky enough to have it shone right in their eyeballs. However, after the 1995 Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, the US was forced to rethink this weapon. As its primary purpose was to permanently blind opponents, the military had to nerf it to make the weapon compliant. While still in limited use, the modern Sabre 203 Dazzlers are much less powerful. Because of not having this weapon available to you, and with ammunition exhausted, your commanders make the painful decision to withdraw back to your lines. But before you do, you all leave a few surprises behind for the enemy troops that are about to retake the trench. Landmines. As you and your comrades prepare to withdraw back to your positions, the combat engineers begin planting a few surprises for the enemy. All along the trench line, you place various anti-personnel mines, including the infamous M16 mines, which leap up and explode at waist height when stepped on. But that's not all. Underneath the fallen enemy, you place booby traps like grenades with their pins pulled out. Additionally, you fill the trenches with small plastic mines known as toe poppers, meant to blow off an enemy soldier's foot. The enemy begins to think something is wrong. Why have the Americans abandoned the position? It seems too good to be true. But then suddenly they realize it is. All along the line, men start setting off landmines. Those checking the dead also wind up alongside the fallen. Soldiers up and down are afraid to step forward due to the metal and plastic mines left everywhere. But just like incendiary weapons, the US has heavily restricted most landmine use and outright banned others. The US aligned its landmine policy with the Ottawa Treaty as the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons became known. This means that the US cannot place non-remote controlled landmines in unmarked, unmonitored areas. US troops are also explicitly banned from using non-metal mines and from employing booby traps. However, US forces have one more trick up their sleeve to delay the enemy, which makes landmines look like a walk in the park: cluster bombs. With US forces safely back in their positions, air support begins hammering the enemy once again. But despite the heavy bombardment, there doesn't seem to be any stopping the human wave of enemy troops charging headlong into US positions. That is, until some more heavy weapons arrive. The US has numerous multiple-launch rocket systems in place to fire. Unknown to the enemy, these launchers are armed with a special kind of munition, known as M26 cluster rockets. These are not your standard rockets. Packed with an explosive warhead, the M26 will explode right above the target. Its main way of dealing damage is not through shrapnel, but hundreds of little bomblets. As dozens of M26 rockets explode above the enemy, there are literally thousands of smaller explosions as these bombs blanket the entire front. The attack is absolutely devastating and blunts the enemy's advance. But today, this would not happen. The US does not use cluster munitions with a failure rate greater than 1%. This means that at least 99% of the bomblets must explode. Legacy cluster munitions, like the M26, have a failure rate of up to 23%, making them illegal under the Ottawa Treaty. However, the US has stated it will use older munitions like this until they are depleted and will not buy any more of the high failure rate ones. However, blanketing an enemy area with bomblets isn't the only wide-area attack weapon the US had banned. The next one is so sinister, it makes one wonder who could even come up with something like it. Biological weapons. With the front line stabilized once again, the US military commanders have no intention of fighting this war forever. Instead, they rely on a last resort weapon that is just short of using a tactical nuclear bomb. As specially trained and suited up personnel load the aircraft in a secret hangar, they have no idea just how devastating this weapon will be. The lone airplane flies deep over enemy lines, but no one pays it any attention. Reconnaissance planes always go up on both sides. But this time, it's different. The pilot presses a button that begins spraying a highly pressurized aerosol. The plane travels for dozens of miles across the enemy's rear areas, spraying this weapon. After delivering his payload, the plane heads back to base, and no one thinks anything of it until the next day. After 24 hours, thousands of soldiers, civilians, and animals begin to experience some pretty gruesome symptoms. Fever, chills, unexplained rashes and blisters, and trouble breathing are some of the first signs. Within a matter of days, people start dropping dead like flies. Unknown to the enemy, the US sprayed an aerosol version of anthrax all over the battle area with the intention of breaking the stalemate and enemy morale. While the US made numerous biological agents, the weaponization of anthrax was the deadliest, with its delivery system via aerosol spray having a 100% mortality rate if left untreated. Thankfully, this weapon never saw the light of day, but if it did, it arguably could have been the second worst thing, only to a nuclear bomb. Now go watch the most deadly US military weapon right now, or click on this video instead.